Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app. Stream all of our live local shows, including the Jim Parisi Show, Solomon on Blast, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. Without further ado, I want to bring in a pretty talented multi-instrumentalist, the guy who has found his way into the melodic improvisational scene and has continued to thrive amongst that, being part of tribute bands and also creating his own original content on his palette. Scott Metzger, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for having me.
Can I ask you, currently, the way you are situated, are you, how do you feel about playing in bands like Joe Russo's Almost Dead, in the sense that is there anything original, or is it all just dead tunes? I've actually never seen the band.
Well, material-wise, we're playing Grateful Dead songs. That's the songbook. That's the foundation. But in a band like that, you're only playing songs about 20%, if that, 15% of the night. And the rest of the night is completely improvised. And we're really going out there and doing it. And, I think that we've got, so it's not original music that we're using as a foundation, but I think that what we're doing off of it is something very original. At least that's, obviously the goal.
Can you talk about your concept of improvisation in the sense that, like, okay, you play a song like, where there's a stretched out improvisational period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Dead did that, but what I'm getting at is like your perception, your understanding, or how you bring improvisation to the table. Meaning, like, is it you don't know what's going to come out of your instrument next? Can you just riff on that for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, to me, something really important, I got a lot of background in playing jazz, a lot of straight ahead stuff, and then quite a bit of avant-garde stuff as well, what people would call avant-garde. And for me, a big thing that I always try and keep in mind is that you can't treat music like it's sacred. You can't be afraid to get in there and really fuck it up and put your own thing on it, no matter what you're playing. If you're playing your own music or somebody else's music, because that's what's going to keep music moving forward. And especially if you're playing a songbook that was written, all this stuff was written like before I was born, practically.
Right.
So, I'm like a punk rock kid from New Jersey, and I think that what I have to offer is bringing that kind of energy to what I'm playing. Whether it be playing over Autumn Leaves on a jazz gig, or playing Uncle John's band with Almost Dead, or one of my own songs.
Talking to Scott Metzger here on the Jake Feinberg Show. You're 1 year, less than a year older than I am. I was born in 78, so it's kind of like, can you talk, was there a period of time where you felt like younger, that you felt music was sacred, and then when you actually realized that in order for it to breathe, you had to get down and dirty and fuck it up?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's an ongoing process, for sure. Because because it's so important to me. Music is like the most important thing to me in the world, and it means so much to me. And like all of us, right? We each have a very, very personal relationship to music, and it takes a lot of courage to go in there and not be afraid to mess it all up, and really kind of just pour your emotions like all over it, and not leave it all on the stage, so to speak, because it gets confusing when you do that. It's not always pretty, it's not always on the grid, and you don't always stick the landing on everything. But to do it justice, I think that's what you got to do.
Can you talk about? I just, one of the L's. My show is predicated on the 4 L's: leadership, love, life, and lineage. When I talk about life, I'm talking about overcoming adversity. But in this case, I would love you to talk about a time on the bandstand when you were humbled, and how it made you stronger, and how it made you, more secure and a more complete musician.
Well, time that I was humbled on the bandstand. I mean, we don't have that kind of time.
I mean, like the earliest memory where you thought that you were doing some pretty hot stuff, and then it kind of, then things fell apart, and then you realized in hindsight that was actually the best thing that could have happened to you.
I'll tell you, this is a good one, and I'll leave the names out of it.
Sure.
Pretty good, well-known band leader. But I was up on stage once, and I was playing. I was improvising some solos, and yeah, like I thought I was playing like my hottest shit, and
Right.
Came to a progression that I had this lick that I had been working on that was going to sit perfectly over it, and I nailed it, stuck the landing, and the whole band looked back, everybody lit up, and everybody's woo, all that, and I took another chorus, and the next time that the progression came around again to the same spot, I did the same lick in the same spot, and the drummer looked over at me, and while we're playing, he goes, "Why the fuck would you do that again?" Right? And I said, "Oh shit," because it felt great to me in my mind. I was like, "Oh, I'd do it once, I'll do it twice,"
Cooking, yeah.
But but from that, what I took from that, I thought about that moment a lot over the years, and what I took from that moment was that in that moment, for the first time it went around, I was kind of playing to emote something, right? Like I'd been working on something, and I knew that this thing was in my ear, and I was emotionally invested in it. And the second time through, I realized that I was doing it strictly to just impress everybody, because I liked the reaction that I got the first time, so I did it again. And that's the difference between men and boys on the bandstand, I think.
Mm-hmm. Let's spell that out for the worldwide audience. What in Scott Metzger's mind separates the men from the boys in a setting where you're playing jazz, surf rock, country music, psychedelic? Throw the labels away. What separates the men from the boys?
Yeah, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what genre you're playing, whether it's improvised or written out. You have to play because you're trying to express something that you're trying to get across, as opposed to playing to impress people, to get the crowd reaction, to get the approval of the people in the band. You got to be willing to just go out there on a limb all by yourself and just be like, you know what, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm playing, and I'm doing it with everything I got. And if you don't like it, that's cool. You can go listen to somebody else. But like, this is what I have to offer, and not worrying about whether or not you get the big cheer at the end of the solo.
Right. No, I dig. I dig. I mean, do you how do you how do you feel? Where do you feel at this point in your career? There seems to be a lot of you've been on a trajectory now for probably since the turn of the century, where you've been really cooking the groove with a lot of cats, different, younger, older, in between. I mean, what are still some of I know it's an ongoing process. Can you talk about an area of your, just your whole constitution as a musician where you still feel like you really need to grow in it? It could be chops, it could be as an entertainer, it could be as a leader. I mean, can you I just feel there's a lot of people out there, who doubt their abilities when in fact they're extremely talented. And I think it takes cats like yourself who have been through the whole thing to talk about the fact that you're still growing yourself.
Right. Yeah. Well, like you said, it's an absolutely ongoing process. And not only that, I think it's ongoing in every realm that you can think of, like technically, sort of, confidence-wise, persona-wise, all of it is, like you get into the specifics, like playing in odd meters is something that's like escaped me for years. I could fake my way through it pretty good, but I've never deep down felt like I could really like play in 15 and like own it and really hear it. So, that's something that I'm working on now, and I can feel as that's coming along, it affects the confidence in everything else that I'm doing.
How are you? Working on? I mean, odd meters. That's Mahavishnu personified. I got Jerry Goodman, the violinist, coming up. But how do you woodshed that? Are you in isolation, or are you seeking out cats that can that you can work with?
Oh God, yeah. No, I wouldn't put anybody through that. Ask them to just be Scott Metzger's Jamie Abersol band.
Exactly.
Yes, 3 hours
very. I love
and
those Abersol records, man.
Oh yeah, sure.
I lived
right?
on that stuff.
Of course.
Man. Funky.
Oh, absolutely. I had like volumes 1 through 22.
Dude, the most eclectic. Every rhythm section, like Rufus Reed was on those, man. I just used to try to play like very perfunctory black keys on the piano. Those albums were great. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off on it. Go ahead.
Right. No, well, it's funny on that topic. Like, I went to William Patterson for a hot minute.
Wow.
For jazz studies, where Rufus was the director while I was there. And when I met him, I told him, I said, man, we've jammed for hundreds of hours together and you don't even know it. Because I had played along with him playing bass on the Abersol record so much.
Was Horace C. Arnold there, the drummer?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, anyway, great pedigree over at William Patterson as far as the jazz studies program.
Oh, the best. Yeah. The best. Really, I was very blessed to be there.
But I mean, the odd meter. I mean, how? So okay, so this is important though, because there are cats who, we have the digital technology now. Mothers Against Drunk Driving have cut down the late night jam sessions, and that's fine. But what I'm getting at is, when you are trying to grow and stretch yourself, how do you do that?
Right. Well, I'm a guy that loves preparation, and I love rehearsing. I know I can't play my best unless I feel totally prepared. And so I don't mind isolating myself and just working on something over and over again for, 3 hours at a stretch. And there's the way I do it is that there's an amazing program called, it's an app. It's called the Amazing Slowdowner. And you fly MP3s into this app, and then you can edit the speed, key. You can get it just so just the left channel's playing or just the right channel's playing, and then you can edit the sections so that a section will just play on a loop endlessly. And that's how I do it. Like recently we were doing an Almost Dead show, and one of the tunes had a section in 15, I think. And I flew it into there, and I spent days just, that was the only improvising I would let myself do for a few days. And slowly you just start to feel it, as opposed to counting. I think that's the secret in that. That's what I'm coming up with anyway. You got to feel it as a groove.
Oh, no, I mean, it's do you, like, as far as feeling is concerned, I feel like, what was the best experience or the most meaningful experience when you were able to really learn how to feel the music? Most of the cats, I've interviewed 500 cats from all different, genres,
right.
Before genres were even ever, funk was never in the lexicon before, it was like, let's play some funk and blues, and then all of a sudden it became funk. But those cats, ultimately, they were listening to radio. Maybe they'd get a chance to hear the song once. They couldn't hit rewind. It was about getting big ears and feeling the music. And so that's basically, when did your ears grow the most in your early career with who? And then also talk about in your mind, how do you feel the music? I think cats think they're feeling it, but a lot of the times I just get up there and they're wanking it. So can you talk a little bit about those two factors, ears and feel?
Yeah, ears. Well, I was hit by music very early on, as I guess any musician who, a professional musician, end up doing this for a living. There's like a life force that you feel coming off music at some point, and if you feel it as strong as I felt it, there's just no question. You can't just go like get a job. And, I wouldn't be able to do that. I had to make this my profession because I felt it so much. I remember once I'd been playing for about 3 or 4 years, and I was a very inside player, for the first few years, as I guess everybody is. And I remember this like it was last week, and we're probably talking about 1998 or so, 99. But I remember like it was last week. I was playing with some friends of mine, and we were just jamming in a buddy's basement, and we were playing a blues in 6/8, and it was a B-flat blues, and I landed, and I heard in the melody that I was playing a B natural, right, which is, it's a flat.
Sure.
Flat 9,
sure.
So it's a pretty dissonant thing. And I remember so clearly the first time that I heard like outside of the box, so to speak, like I'm a guitar player, you stay in the pentatonic box, keep it safe. And it was such a powerful moment, because it was like all of a sudden nothing, there were no limitations. All of a sudden, and it was a little glimpse into seeing that not everything needs to be inside, and I was really capable of hearing things outside the box. That was it doesn't sound like a huge story or a big moment, and I've actually talked to the bass player that I was playing with that day, and
sure.
I said, do you remember that? That was like a life-changing moment for me. Do you remember that? And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, he doesn't even remember getting it. It was just another jam session.
No, I really, well, I mean, dissidence to me is essential. I often I go back to, Garcia, at this pivotal time in his career where, he got together with Merle Saunders, and Merle, that was because Jerry needed to learn jazz scales, but I'm a non-musician, so it's like when you talk about inside, can you talk about playing in, like, who are some of the jazzers that you were always playing inside, and then and then the dissidents that you heard, and who were some of the cats that play in a more dissident fashion? Because like you said, it expanded your right. All I'm saying is I know when I listen to the Jerry and Merle stuff, I hear Jerry, he's not all that comfortable playing jazz, but he's trying to stretch himself out. Merle's playing these just very simple jazz chords on the piano. But listen, I mean, I get off on talking to you guys because I know exactly, even though I don't technically, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, who were the jazzers before that you were getting off on, and then after that, who were after that the Doctors of Dissidence that you were locking in with?
Doctors of Dissidence, I get. Well, I mean, when I started listening to jazz guitarists, I started listening, I think that the holy guy in the whole thing is Wes Montgomery,
right,
and Charlie Christian when you're talking about jazz guitar. To me, those two are the absolutely essential. Like, you got to know those guys when you hear them within seconds, no question about it. Very, very, very important guys. And, to me, in the grander evolution of the guitar's sound, I think that their sound now is, harmonically, it's inside, I think, for the most part. I think most people would agree with that,
Mm-hmm.
When you put it next to somebody like, you move down the line, and some shit that I got into like later on in life, like some of the Miles Davis stuff that had John McLaughlin on it, where the harmonic stuff that he's playing over completely different chord changes than what the band are playing. If you put it on a sheet of paper, it would be, considered wrong, I think.
Right.
Technically, he's not playing like the right notes. So he would be a guy. McLaughlin is definitely an out guy. A huge guy for me was John Abercrombie.
Love that cat. Oh, you talk. I don't know if you ever heard his albums. The pianist Barry Miles from back in the early '70s.
Oh yeah,
Scatbird and the other one I can't remember. I mean, dude, Pat Martino's on one. Pat's another cat that does a lot of dissidence. But
yes.
Have you hung with Pat before?
I've met Pat, and I studied with Abercrombie.
Okay, so let's break it down. Tell me about let's just break this down because I this is so important. I mean, you went for a hot minute to William Patterson. Metzger's a cat who's burning on the bandstand. I don't believe that truly in academia you can necessarily grow the vocabulary of any music. But when you talk about studying with Abercrombie, can you talk about a typical like a lesson that really was transcendent for you?
Well, John I don't know. I took a few lessons with him. I drive up. He's upstate. I would drive upstate and go to his place. And I remember the first lesson that I booked with him, I was so excited, and I came with like all this material that like I wanted to go over.
Right.
And we ended up going for like an hour-long walk to start the lesson. I thought I would only be there for like an hour, and it ended up being like this monstrous like 4.5-hour hang. And
that is awesome. That is unbelievable.
It was one of the coolest experiences of my life, and it showed me so much about being humble as a musician. This guy is like a really important guy on this instrument, and I was just a kid, that just wanted to come up and take a lesson from him. And he gave me his whole afternoon, and we walked around and we talked about music, and then we talked about other stuff. We talked about TV shows and politics and all this stuff. And then we went inside and we kind of picked up the guitars and we played Solar, which was super cool for me because he had made a record with Schofield years ago called Solar. So for me, it was it's kind of funny. I was throwing in his licks that I had stolen off the thing,
Do you feel that the conversation, the hang, was intended just to humanize the situation, so that sort of all the anticipation and awe that you might have had going in kind of fell away, so that then you guys could just play and be yourselves?
I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what really, there's a bunch of things that stuck out for me from those times, but one of them was that he would stop me and ask me what I had just played, and that was mind-blowing to me,
What year was this? Was it late 90s or something?
Yeah, late 90s.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and he would be like, wow, that's a cool line. Let's play that. And then in his Abercrombie kind of he's a big thematic improviser, taking one idea and making it stretch across a whole solo. Then we would I remember he took my idea and played a whole solo out of it, and it was, I get goosebumps talking about it now.
I love it.
So cool, right? Could not be a cooler guy.
Well, I mean, it's funny. He did some really cool stuff. I mean, I collect mostly vinyl, but I've connected with so many of the musicians. I got to get you this record. It's really hard to find. It's with the drummer George Marsh in '84. Abercrombie was, it's called Drumstrum, and he's playing mandocello, mandolin, and it's just percussion and guitar. But here's the question for Metzger: do you know Abercrombie's first, not as a leader, but the first session he was on as an accompanist that got cut on record?
Oh, I have no idea. First one?
Johnny Hammond Smith, album called Nasty. And George Benson was supposed to be on the gig and couldn't make the gig. And at the time, John was playing with Hammond Smith in an organ trio, and he got the call. He is an intellectual cat, but a guy that really has expanded a lot of vocabulary in music, and I wonder about that in your own mind. I mean, sonically, how are you trying to add to the vocabulary of music in the Scott Metzger way? I mean, you play the pedal steel, which is not an easy instrument to cultivate or get on top of, but in your mind, I just look at, maybe I'm way off, maybe I'm just in my Tucson little hermetic bubble, and I'm just here, but I just feel like there's been a stifling of language, and I look at cats like yourself as gatekeepers and I just want you to know how you want to expand vocabulary in music.
Yeah, well, thanks. I couldn't agree more, and I think that the key word that you just said is language. Right. To me, it's all about, because everybody's ideas are coming from somewhere, right? So you have to be very careful. I think you have to be very careful as a musician who you decide is going to be an influence to you, and you got to understand. You really got to think it through. Why is this person an influence on me? What is it that they're doing? Not just because everybody loves this guy, because he's the most popular player, or whatever. I'm real picky about what I listen to. It's kind of like, because if you listen to something, just some like garbage for long enough, it's going to start coming out in the way in your playing. It's just inevitable that what goes in is going to come out in one way or another. So, I guess, to answer your question, I try and find guys that I think are doing something interesting and that bend my ear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always keeping an ear out for that moment. Like if somebody playing the guitar or any instrument for that matter, that like there's a moment where it's like, oh, I don't know if I've ever even heard that before, and it certainly didn't expect it. Those are the guys that I then kind of follow the trail of breadcrumbs and go back through their career and see how they got to that point. You
throw out anyone in particular?
Oh, there's a lot of guys. I mean, Richard Thompson has been a big one in the last few years for me.
Wow.
Because I just think that guy, you're hard pressed to come up with any real guitar hero. He's the thinking man's guitar hero, because it's not blues based. And that is such a rare thing to find an electric guitar guy that's not blues based. His thing is, I don't know what it's based in. It's like Stonehenge music,
Absolutely, yeah.
Like Celtic bagpipes, but on the electric guitar. It's super cool and super, super tough sounding. And the other guy lately for me has been a guy named Debashish, and I have to admit, I don't know how to say his last name. Bachara, I believe.
Right.
And
okay. Interesting.
He plays something called Hindustani slide guitar is the style. I
love that stuff.
And
that's badass. That to me is you're stretching out, man. That's
on every level. His playing blows my mind. Like I just sit there and I just listen. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what this guy's playing, and I'm loving every second of it. And I just, you just try and soak those kinds of moments up.
Yeah, can you, we were born in the same period, but because of your sort of your nuanced taste in music, the fact that you are somewhat fearless on the bandstand and you've been playing with a lot of people who lived through a completely different time in our country's history. Could you talk a little bit about your experience with psychedelics and how it has expanded not just your consciousness, but also your ability to play?
Psychedelics like drugs.
LSD specifically, yeah.
LSD. Sure, yeah. Well, sure. I took a lot of acid when I was in high school.
In high school, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, yeah. And you go to the wooded areas of South Jersey and stuff like that?
Oh man, there was nothing to do in my town except get into trouble, right? And then I got into plenty of trouble, believe me. And then when I found pot and LSD, I would just get as high as a 14-year-old could be or whatever, and just listen to Miles Davis Live Evil, like as loud as my stereo would go, and just go into like a hole for 3 days, of of just that.
Here's the question, because I do you believe that the LSD that you were getting was very pure? Because I know when I went to Boston University, I did a lot, and in a short period of time, and it was kind of tainted at that. It was obviously black market, but it was just not. Some of it was amazing. Some of it was. I'm just curious about the quality of it and whether it was a good hole or a bad hole.
It was always good. I never had you hear these nightmare stories.
I know.
I never had a bad experience on LSD, and it was always a music. For the most part, it was always like a music-based thing. Like put on Interstellar Spaces or like really out jazz stuff, and I think that I was getting good shit.
I know that the Philadelphia or the Pennsylvania Jersey border, I got some sugar cubes, and they were the best I've ever had in my life. So there was someone making some decent stuff. But even as a leader today with Wolf, I mean, did you find that some of that introspection, I know this is hearkening back to your teenage years, but has that introspection helped you as a leader?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's maybe like a fearlessness seed, and the importance of fearlessness seed that was planted. I'm not sure how much of a result that was. I think that was something that was always in me.
Yeah.
Before taking anything. Maybe that sort of accentuated it, or blew it wide open. Because it is similar, isn't it? I guess. If you're gonna step off the beaten path while you're playing music, that takes a lot of guts, and it does. It takes a lot of guts to like put something in your body that's gonna possibly, you're never gonna see the world the same way again. It takes a certain type.
When was the first? You got to excuse me here, but when did you first become a leader of a band?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't think of myself as having, leader of bands mentality, because I as a musician, I don't feel that way, because I feel like that everybody that's playing is contributing equally, always. Everybody's voice that's playing is just as important. But I think that some would say that I was like a co-leader of a band in my early 20s with this band Rana that I toured around with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Matt, the keyboardist, I think would be considered the leaders of that band. And then really, Wolf is the first thing that's ever had my name on it. And it's only, it's just featuring. And that's, frankly, that happened reluctantly,
It's happened reluctantly in the sense that you would prefer it to be just more of a communal thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, while we're up there, it might be a guitar-led thing, but like musically, I don't feel like, those guys are invaluable. Those guys are irreplaceable,
Absolutely.
Taylor and John
but I guess that's the thing, you're right. I mean, it's all about blending in so that everyone just can cook the stew. And I dig that. But I mean, how do you deal with the fact that you are becoming a draw? I mean, that people come to see you, and you're an entertainer, and you're obviously a pretty down to earth cat. So I mean, it's you have to assume some of that, and I just wonder how you're handling that with Wolf, because I mean, this is, and on the flip side, if you could talk to the audience worldwide about what you guys are trying to. What you guys are doing musically as a group.
Right. Well, I think the two questions kind of go hand in hand, because, it's certainly like a new skill set to be the band leader, and it does, you got to dig like pretty deep. It's a different energy that you have to bring to the stage, because it's true. It's like when we're on stage, there's a lot more eyes on me than if there's 5 other guys on stage, or if I'm just, backing someone up. It's like all eyes are on you, and that's a big responsibility that you have to rise to the occasion. I think musically, the band is trying to do something that's not just, we're trying to have a guitar trio that's not just 2 guys in the back in the shadows with one guy out in the spotlight, just soloing all night. We're trying to do something where it's not necessarily flashy or showy, but just more musical. We're really just trying to do something that's very, very musical.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think sometimes just play the melody of a song a bunch of times over the course of a 4-minute version of the song, as opposed to playing the melody once and then soloing and then playing the melody again. But like play the melody in different octaves, or play the melody in double time one time. Mm-hmm. Just trying to get more creative and off the grid than just this, let's play the head, we'll have guitar solos, and then we'll play the head again, and then we're done.
Do you find that, what do you? I mean, we both grew up. I would assume. I mean, we were inundated with labels genres of music, and this is jazz, and this is rock, and this is soul, and this is blues, and I just wanted to ask you how much you feel that labeling and genres have stifled music, and how do you in Wolf go about sort of just going from the Duke Ellington school, which is it's just music, it's either good music or bad music.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, not to get pegged. I mean, it just to me, it's all about branding now, and I just feel like cats like yourself talk about that seed of fearlessness. It is about just going on your own path.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you're right too. I think it is about branding. And I think that people bend over backwards to figure out how are we going to brand this? How do I want to be branded? I have to think about like how this comes across. And I think that my thinking about something like that is the total opposite. And that if you just let something come, if you let your personality come organically, it'll be, the brand will then be, it's the Wolf sound, or it's the Scott Metzger sound.
Right.
I really do. I mean, I think that, and the guys who are like my heroes in that respect, like you look at a guy like Mark Rebo,
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
That guy is way off the charts when he started doing what he was doing. And I'm sure that everybody was like, what is this? What is that? But he stuck to it, and now it's like, oh yeah, he's doing like that Mark Rebo thing. He did it.
Right. He that's interesting. He branded himself, which is, I dig. I mean, how do you guys feel like, where are you? I mean, how long is Wolf? Where is the evolution of Wolf? I mean, have you started to be like people saying, "Well, we're going to hear some Wolf music tonight"? Anything like along those lines?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like, what are you playing? It's like, we're playing some Wolf music for you. And I mean, that. We haven't tried to push it. The label that we're on, Royal Potato, they sort of found us. Without us, we weren't like scrounging around like looking for a deal. I think that we're really happy just like doing our thing, and I think that comes across, and I think that people are finding us because we're not trying to like fit into a mold. We just don't worry about it.
Talking to Scott Metzger here on the Jake Feinberg Show live on Power Talk. You had somewhat of a serendipitous encounter at a coffee shop with Trey Anastasio and Tom Marshall. This is going back a ways.
It is, yes.
But insofar, do you have a compatriot? I always like talking to cats, frontmen. I don't even like that word, but leaders. People that are getting people in the door. But ultimately, do you have a compatriot that you write songs with? Lyrics.
No.
No. So so the songs that
no.
No, it's just you.
It's just me. Yeah, the songs that I've written they've all come from me.
Can you talk about a particular song that has lyrics that you've written, and ultimately, like maybe for you, what is is it the crafting of it? Is it the implementation? Is it the finality? What is how do you take us through the creative process of a Metzger, a song with lyrics in it? I think that's because that's separate from improvisational playing instrumentally, and then also you obviously want to go deeper than just I love you or I miss you or this kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, where does can you just take one song maybe off this album if there's one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the album's instrumental.
The whole album's instrumental. Okay.
Right. But I've written plenty of songs with lyrics, and the one that jumps out, the way I always wrote songs with lyrics was that they would always pretty much start the same way with a phrase. They would always start from the lyrics, and it'd be a phrase. And the one that jumps to mind is a song called "Brother, I Don't Stand a Chance," on an album called What It Is. And that was the perfect marriage. That song turned into the perfect marriage of like a phrase, which then grew into lyrics, which then grew into a chord progression, which then grew into a production concept. And to me, it just all those steps were exactly on the same page emotionally. They all got across the same exact emotion.
Is that still part of your repertoire? I mean, do you break out songs from that, or have you played that song lately? How does it feel?
Hints of it. Yeah, but not with lyrics. Instrumentally, only instrumentally.
You talk about the drummer in Wolf. I always going back to being that you're a jazzer, Papa Joe, Philly Joe, and then Art Blake. I'm just thinking about Elvin. All these guys that were playing subdivisions. Can you talk about the kind of drummer that you like to play with, as far as whether the way they subdivide the notes and things like that? I just, to me, I'm just getting off on that because we've been, I mean, my daughters, just having all these electronic beats crunched into their ears for 2 decades has been demoralizing. I just like you to talk about,
yeah,
you know,
right.
I mean, who is the drummer in Wolf, and what is your drummer? What do you get off on about a drummer? What do you like the most about a drummer?
Right. Well, a great drummer has a lot going on in a seemingly simple package. That's what I always, I think really makes up a great drummer. You know, you hear what they're doing, and it's like, it doesn't sound that tough or whatever. And then you get in there, and there's all these different feels happening. Guy who plays in Wolf is a guy named Taylor Flores, and he has that, they call rock and roll because of the drum beat, which is mixed, straight, and swung. They say that the rock part of the feel is the real straight part, and the roll is the swung part. And you'd have to talk to a drummer to find out what makes up what. I'm not sure of the technical things, if the left hand's keeping it straight or the right hand, whatever. But Taylor does that better than anybody that I've ever played with. He's the real deal. He's got that Midwest thing too. He's from Illinois, and those Midwest guys, I don't know what it is, but they've got that rock and roll thing. I don't know what it is. There's something in there's
a regional
beef
thing
they're eating. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, he's an elastic enough drummer where you can go outside of just going back to the heads, and you can play melodies, and he can keep time and play melodies. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we got a whole bag of tricks too. Like we've been doing it long enough that we can look at each other and we'll slow the time way, way, way down, and then pick it back up and take it further than where we had, faster than where the original thing had started, or, just look at him and he'll just play like a whole song just on hi-hats, or something like that, because you got to figure out ways to keep it interesting. There's just 3 guys and nobody's singing. You got to get creative up there.
Well, I mean, this is fascinating. I mean, this to me is, we're not talking about a power trio here in any way, shape. I mean,
no.
you're trying to, when you say one guy in the front, 2 guys in the back, are you, will you reposition behind the drum kit? I mean, how do you get all 3 of you up in the front?
No, but I'll kind of wander around. I mean, we sort of do a U shape, I think, but I'll definitely different rooms sound differently when you're playing them, and sometimes, we did a gig once, and the best spot where I could hear things the best was behind Taylor. I realized, in the second song, I was kind of wandering around looking for the sweet spot on stage, and I found it, and I was behind Taylor, and I just stood back there, because I want to be able to hear what's happening, and otherwise I'm not going to play as well as I can. But yeah, I mean, we set up pretty straight across on the front of the stage. Yeah.
Just wanted to, in our remaining, we've been cooking here for about 45 minutes here. I've been having a ball with you. Just wanted to ask you about when you play with somebody who has a lot to say, someone like Anders Osborne. Do you guys have any? I mean, I guess early on when you were first feeling each other out, I mean, was there any verbal dialogue about, how you guys were going to take turns, or I mean, how do you not get in step on each other's toes? To me, you guys have a lot to say, and it's important.
Yeah.
When you're riffing back and forth. Can you talk about with your musical relationship with Anders?
Yeah, I mean, there was literally not a word. Literally not a word. I think
love this
the
stuff.
first gig, he got up, and I think maybe, I met him 15 minutes before we went on, and I think that he looked at me before he started the first song, and he just went, "Gee," and that was the key of the first tune we played, and that was about it, and that was 3 years ago now, I guess. And honestly, I mean, I've done gigs with him all over the country. We've gone all over the place, and we don't talk about what's going to happen. Who's going to take what solo or whatever. You can't do that, really, because then it becomes this forced thing where you're in this box, and it's like, oh, well, we talked about that this was going to happen in this order, and that's not really respecting the moment. You got to respect, like, okay, well, he's feeling it here, I'm feeling it here, and it takes a very specific kind of understanding and communication with, like, looks and nods. It's like you're, second base coach signaling, or something.
Right, you're giving hands. I love the nonverbal communication on the bandstand. I mean, that harkens back to, it goes way. I mean, do you? At the core, what are the jazz albums from the bebop or even 60s period that you like to fall back on that give you peace of mind? It doesn't necessarily even have to have a guitar in it.
Right, yeah. Well, the bebop, I don't think many of them do. I mean, certainly like some of the Wes Montgomery, So Much Guitar, Wes Montgomery, that one never gets old. None of the Wes Montgomery albums do, really. Do you
like the Master Sound stuff with Buddy and Monk?
I'm not as familiar with that stuff. I know about it, and I've heard it. I never went deep into it. There's a lot of YouTube clips of them playing.
Well, a lot of people don't realize Monk was the first cat to play electric bass on a jazz album.
He was, right?
1953 Art Farmer album. I just love that trivia. That was just a badass group of guys. I mean, they were all like blue collar workers. Wes was a monster, man. Wes was a freaking monster.
I mean,
individual.
the feel is it's completely like, everybody's tried to cop that feel. No one's ever done.
Right.
Talking about for 50 years now, people have been trying to do that. What is like the Bridge? Sonny Rollins, the Bridge.
Oh,
that's a big one.
Ooh.
That's a little post.
No, I dig. I haven't heard that in a while. No, that's a good call. That's a great call.
That one has guitar, right? That's Jim Hall. He's brilliant.
What about an not even unknown, just like a sleeper album? What's this? Give the audience a sleeper album. Their ears can grow a little bit.
Right. Well, there was always, Oliver Nelson, Blues in the Abstract Truth.
Oh I can't believe you just dropped that, dude.
I don't know if that's a sleeper. I don't know how popular that record is.
Oliver Nelson was a badass. That was that's pretty sleeper though. Blues in the Abstract Truth. What do you dig on? What do you get off on with that?
I mean, there's there's so many things to get off on that record. For me, just the price of admission is worth just Oliver Nelson's solo on the title track.
Right.
And all of the arrangements, all the horn arrangements is amazing. The rhythm section, it's top to bottom. That album is top to bottom. It's got everything.
Can you just tell the audience about any what your upcoming gigs are looking like in terms of between now and the end of the year? I mean, are you going to be going up to Levon's Barn? Are you going to be in Brooklyn? Are you going to be hanging out, riffing with Anders? I mean, what's going on in Metzger?
Yeah, well, there's there's a lot of stuff going on. I got some gigs with Wolf is releasing its record this week, so that record's coming out this week. So we have a lot of local dates in Brooklyn, and we're doing Philly, we're doing Bridgeport, Connecticut. Later on in the month, Wolf is doing some gigs. We're going to be opening and backing for our friend Nicole Atkins, who's a great singer from Jersey. We'll be doing that in upstate New York and in Manhattan and down at Asbury Park. And I got some stuff with Phil Lesh later on this month up at the Capitol Theater.
He loves that place.
He loves that place. What's not to love? What a gorgeous joint. You kidding? That place.
Oh man. So you are booked solid. I always like to ask the cats this stuff because we're living through, in my mind, we're definitely at a crossroads in our country, and I'm curious about your concept of love and off the bandstand. What is your concept of love, and how do you bring love to this world?
Well, I guess the best way to answer that is that I try and bring it in every interaction that I have with people, in the small things, even just like going to the bodega and buying something and just, treating the guy behind the counter with respect because he's a human being, just like me, just like we are. And then, I think that if you're playing music, whether you know it or not, that's what you're up there spreading, You never know who you're playing for and what kind of hope you're giving people in that moment. And sometimes, you never know what somebody's going through out there, and you just might change somebody's life. That's what I like to think. And every time you get on stage and do that, I'd say that's to really play from a very vulnerable place, to really let people see what's going on in your mind, I think is the ultimate form of love that I know how to give.
Scott Metzger, the album, his band Wolf, the album is coming out this week, and hey man, listen, all I can tell you about Royal Potato is that they are, they're great people there, and I want to thank them for setting this up. I also encourage you to make it down to the old Pueblo here in Tucson. We get left out a lot, and I think your trio would be a good fit at maybe the Rialto. I would love you to come in studio and hang for a minute if we can do part 2.
Absolutely, I'm going to take you up on it.
All right, brother. Listen, have a beautiful day. Best of luck on everything going on with you, man.
Thanks, Jake. Back at you, man.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Peace.
Later.
Yep. Let's hear from Scott Metzger. His band and his new album Wolf is coming out this week, and we'll be back in about 9 minutes with Justin Kreutzmann.